Celebrating 47 years on the air, award-winning Farmweek is a production of Mississippi State University Extension.
Today on Farm Week, more from the new leader of MSU Extension, how he wants to help build Mississippi's rural economy. Plus, they literally had a field day. High hopes for the smart practices of small farmers. In Southern gardening, purple reigns supreme. Eddie heads back to Tupelo in search of Camassia. And finally, go deep-sea diving with Farm Week at the Mississippi Aquarium. Farm Week starts right now.
Hello everyone, I'm Zach Ashmore.
And I'm Mike Russell. Great to have you with us again here on Farm Week. Last week we introduced you to the new director of Mississippi State University Extension, Dr. Angus CATCHOT. He's not new to Extension, but he is new to his job. This week, more from Dr. CATCHOT about another one of his many and ambitious goals to help develop Mississippi's rural economy.
As Extension, if we can help small business, rural economies develop. If they develop, of course, they need people. If we can help businesses be more successful, more fruitful, obviously they'll have to hire people. Now, how big of a difference does that make at the end? You know, I'm not sure, but I do know one thing. If we are helping businesses become profitable and they need people to work for them, they're going to be looking for people. Now, hopefully a lot of those will be internal that we already have here. If we have people that are not working, hopefully we can help there. But I do know we have some pretty big initiatives in Mississippi at the state level, even outside of Extension. We have big businesses coming to the state of Mississippi. Some of our most recent numbers show we're making big leaps in education. So there's lots of attractive things about the state of Mississippi. But I think Extension is definitely plugged in there, and we're playing our role in many different levels. We're playing our part in helping those businesses remain viable, remain strong. But I would say in a large degree, one of our big focuses is in those rural areas. We have a lot of focus in those areas where we're making people more profitable. I mean, I'm convinced of it. We're helping their economic bottom line every day, and that's got to be good for the state in the end.
You know, after getting a chance to talk to Dr. CATCHOT and talking to him about some of his plans, if anybody can pull off what he's trying to do with the rural economy, I think it might be him.
I agree, and I'm glad to see Extension's trying to focus on rural economies. I'm glad that's part of their mission. And another part of Extension's mission is small-scale farms. These producers are often overlooked, but if you've ever been to a farmer's market, chances are you've seen one. Recently, the Alliance of Sustainable Agriculture, aided by Extension, held a field day in Cedar Bluff, Mississippi to do just that.
This event is part of really a 12-year venture for the Alliance. We started these events back in April of 2012. And we've been doing them consistently since then. In fact, this event is our 110th event. We conduct these events all over the state of Mississippi, usually at small scale operations like this one.
We have some experts here. We have NRCS folk who are talking about the programs that they offer, but also the expertise that growers have in these small, diverse systems where they're usually growing different crops, have different challenges on their landscapes, different soils, opportunity to grow trees as well as annual crops, as well as have animals, gives them an opportunity to talk about how they're storing resources, cycling different nutrients, and then accessing financial and technical resources to enhance the infrastructure and growing potential of their operations.
Well, I think that it's a wonderful opportunity to network, and as some of our presenters have mentioned, it really benefits your own farming enterprise when you network with others, when you take advantage of what they've learned, listen to their tips, and then know who to call when you have some questions or some issues that you really like to discuss.
In Mississippi and other places, there's so many health issues, high blood pressure, cholesterol. We eat a lot of the wrong foods. And so what we need to do is, as consumers, try to eat healthier, try to move a little, try to support a small scale operation like this, whether it's through produce, whether it's through, like here, grass-fed beef, support those farmers who are growing or producing local, healthy, sustainably grown food. And then our communities win if we do that. So I like to say that sustainable agriculture can change not only the health, but the economic landscape of poor, rural, underserved communities.
Check out your area for small-scale farms and see what they have to offer. You might be surprised how affordable locally grown meat and vegetables can be.
Here's another MSU Extension first, a beef cattle calving school hosted by a couple of enterprising instructors from MSU's Department of Animal and Dairy Sciences. It was the next step after a reproduction boot camp, and for those at the first session a few days ago, it apparently was the birth of a big success.
We're expecting our first calf on our little hobby farm here in the next month or so. So we're here mainly to just kind of understand what are some of the problems we might run into and how we might address those when we need to call someone in.
I just wanted to learn more about the calving because we are starting out with some cows, and I just wanted to increase my knowledge. I've never done this before.
Stan Arrington and Amy Christopher are just starting out in their calf raising efforts, but there were some seasoned veterans in the room too. Everyone there to get the latest information and strategies for birthing new calves. The calving school was the brainchild of Libby Durst, a well-rounded extension associate who grew up in the Delta and got her degree from MSU. She loves calving and wanted to share that love with everyone.
I was very excited to host a calving school for our producers. Calving is one of the greatest but most stressful times of the year. It's so fun seeing calves hit the ground, but there is a lot of risk involved. We take for granted how difficult it is for that cow to do something that's seemingly so natural, but problems can occur. So there's a lot of strategies that we can use to help that process go more smoothly for both the animal and the producer. For those people who are awake in the middle of the night, wondering if their heifers are okay, hoping that everything is all right, this was for that producer. Producers care a lot about their animals, and this was one more tool that we could give them to help them through that calving season.
The other half of the calving school partnership is Dr. Brandy Karish. Her folks had a small cattle operation in Louisiana. She's been at Mississippi State since 2011.
Beef cattle producers are going to feed the world, right? So we produce beef. Doesn't always necessarily go straight to consumer here in Mississippi, but all the beef, all the calves, all the cattle that are ultimately born here from the producers that will go through our school will ultimately end up in the food chain at some point in time in their productive lives. So everything that we can do to encourage producers to be good stewards of their animals, be good stewards of their land, and this calving school fits really nicely into that.
The calving school covers pretty much everything from start to finish: reproductive anatomy, the calving stages, what a normal birth looks like, when to intervene in the birth, and a lot more. In the end, the calving school goes a long way toward demystifying the entire process, and it's all part of a new evolution at MSU Extension.
I would just like to say, with the way Extension is changing, our messaging is changing some. We're trying to help reconnect with people to let them know that we're here, and I would just like to say that we love questions, we love to be of service to our community, and so if there are questions, if there are problems and challenges that our viewers face, that we would love to help, and I want people to know that we're out here and ready to serve.
Again, this was the first calving school at MSU and a huge success. There will be more of them in the future, absolutely jam-packed with solid information and advice.
On the lighter side, purple reigns supreme, not just as a color of royalty, but of beautiful plants that might just rule your own garden. Eddie Smith has some princely options.
Today's Southern Gardening is in Tupelo, Mississippi at the home of Maybelle Murphy, admiring some beautiful plants with the color purple. Plants with purple color have some of the most beautiful and unique flowers in the world. Chives are usually known as an herb, but they can also be grown as a pollinator plant. Chive flowers consist of small, purple, star-shaped blooms that grow in dense spherical clusters. Each cluster is composed of numerous individual flowers held together by slender stems. The flowers are typically arranged in a globe-shaped formation atop a single tall stalk, rising above the foliage of the chive plant. A classic annual receding pollinator plant with purple blooms is bachelor's button, often called cornflower. It recedes with blooms that may be single or double. Camassia is another plant with striking purple blooms that will add beauty to the landscape. Their blooms consist of clusters of star-shaped flowers arranged along slender stems. The blooms are often arranged in a spike-like inflorescence with multiple flower clusters rising above the foliage of the plant. If you are looking for a shade-loving ground cover, ajuga is a great choice. Ajuga, commonly known as bungleweed, has spikes of purple, small, tubular-shaped flowers. The leaves are often glossy and can range in color from green to bronze, purple, or variegated depending on the species and cultivar. As you can see, plants with the color purple can add beauty and charm to your landscape. I'm Eddie Smith, and I will see you next time on Southern Gardening.
We'll take a break right here, but stick around. Coming up, another extraordinary encore episode of Extension Matters. It's a breathtaking view above ground of an amazing underwater partnership between MSU Extension and the Mississippi Aquarium, a spectacular showcase of the extreme wonders of the Gulf Coast. Visitors get up close and personal with creatures of the deep, the aquarium sparking their interest and curiosity. Diving deep, that's coming up on Farm Week. Don't go away.
Here's this week's Farm Week calendar. First, ever wish you could plant more acres on time? How important is new technology being sold to farmers? And do these systems actually pay for themselves? MSU's Plant and Soil Sciences is hosting a planting technology field day June 5th, 9 to 1 in Brooksville. This event is free and includes lunch and a field tour with a focus on new tech for soybeans, corn, and cotton. For more information and to register, see the MSU Extension website. Next, the popular Culinary Arts Kids Camp, June 17th through 21st and 24th through 28th in Starkville. This camp introduces kids to exciting and fun hands-on training focusing on fruits and veggies. Kids learn how to cook, read recipes, and understand food safety. Cost is $300 per child, lunch and snacks provided. Registration is required, limited spots available. Visit the MSU Extension website for more. And that's the Farm Week calendar for this week.
I believe in people and their hopes, their aspirations and their faith. I believe that education, of which extension work is an essential part, is basic in stimulating individual initiative, self-determination, and leadership. I believe that these are the keys to democracy and that people, when given facts they understand, will act not only in their self-interest but also in the interest of society. I believe in intellectual freedom to search for and present the truth without bias and with courteous tolerance towards the views of others. Because I believe these things, I am an extension professional.
Time for the market report, looking at the livestock markets this week.
That's right. We've got a few USDA reports and an interview with an extension expert. But first, the numbers. What were last week's biggest gains and losses? And then several USDA reports that help explain why the markets are moving. And finally, MSU Extension livestock economist Josh Maples gives us an update on our current cattle situation. So, markets closed last Friday moving down, but not dramatically. Well, except for a few commodities. Let's take a look. Last week's biggest gain, live cattle up 4 3/4 cents, a near 2 3/4 rise from the previous week. Last week's biggest loss, however, sugar, down over a cent, an over 6% drop from the previous week. And that's pretty significant. So, why the big change? Well, several recent USDA reports can shed some light on sugar prices and live cattle prices as well. In short, we have an influx of sugar coming in, quite a change from earlier this year, and cattle herds continuing to rebuild. Here's Farm Week's Bella Bingham with the summary.
The sugar and sweeteners outlook shows U.S. sugar production down, mostly in sugar beets and sugar cane due to unfavorable weather. As a result, U.S. sugar supply down 63,000 short tons raw value, or STRV. U.S. imports therefore expected to increase 21,000 STRV. World total use down 100,000 STRV, although 2024 exports the largest in a decade. Global ending stocks up 37,000 STRV. The livestock, dairy, and poultry outlook shows tight cattle supplies, predicting less beef production throughout this and next year. Cattle prices also predicted to reach new highs in the coming year. For dairy, forecasts for milk cow herds, milk per cow, and total milk production are up despite the current lower herd status, and it looks like that'll continue into 2025. Pork production also expected to increase into next year, and about a quarter of U.S. pork will likely be exported. In poultry and eggs, total broiler production lower, likely due to bird flu, but flocks are coming back. That being said, exports predicted down this year, but slightly up in 2025. Egg production, despite lower flocks, is rising this year and is expected to continue next year as well.
So, with that context in mind, we turn to the current cattle situation in Mississippi and the U.S. I spoke with MSU Extension livestock economist Josh Maples, and he had quite a bit to tell us about how much has changed so far this year, and it's not all bad news. All right, Josh, what's the pasture situation look like for 2024?
Yeah, so we're in much better shape, Zach, than we have been the past couple of years in terms of drought and pasture. You remember the last few years we've talked about severe droughts in some parts of the U.S., and thankfully most of that is mitigated. There's very few areas in the U.S. right now that are under any sort of drought categorization. So we're entering, 2024 so far in a much better spot. Hopefully we're going to have more available pasture, and we've also talked about having fewer cattle in general, so that's different for this year, at least for right now, that we're not continuing to talk about drought conditions.
Well, that's good. So with the drought conditions being better, I suppose that means our hay stock situation is also looking better.
Hay stock situation is significantly better than it was in 2023. So 2022, if you recall, was a really tough hay year, and so the hay stocks report comes out in May. It's really talks about stocks that were produced last year, so stocks that we have on hand. So we're up about 46% at the nationwide level on hay stocks. So a lot better situation right now than we were sitting in at this point a year ago. Now, of course, the 2024 hay season is upon us. It's the plentiful rains that we have gotten in Mississippi and in other areas are a good thing in terms of the grass and forage growing, but can also, of course, lead to some challenges in actually getting the hay out of the field. And so that's kind of the spot producers are in right now, is pasture conditions are in better shape. The hay fields are probably in better shape than they have been. We need some breaks in the rain to be able to get the hay baled and out of the pasture and put up.
All of this is good news, but we also know that the herd is still on the lower side. So how has that affected calf sales?
It's affected it a lot, and the sales of calves and feeder cattle in general in 2024 has been really interesting to track. So if you look at the national receipts, we're down about 6% in terms of cattle, feeder cattle or stocker cattle that were sold in the first 19 or 20 weeks of 2024 so far as compared to last year. That aligns with this tighter cow supply that we've talked about. There's fewer cows out there. We should expect fewer calves to hit the ground. So we're starting to see that. But it's also been interesting the timing of it. So if you look at February and part of March of 2024, our receipts were actually quite a bit higher than they were in previous years. So producers saw those pricing opportunities. They saw the higher prices early in the year than they've been used to, and they went ahead and offloaded quite a few cattle that they might have normally stuck around or held until a little bit later. So we've seen this interesting kind of trend this year where we saw sales go up, the first month or two of the year, and then now we're back down below year-ago levels. But altogether down about 6% from where we were a year ago in terms of cattle, feeder cattle, stocker cattle sales.
And that's it for a deeper look into the markets. A lot to sift through, and every bit has an effect on prices, which in turn affects the consumer. But for now, seems things are all right. Mike?
Thanks, Zach. We tend to think of agriculture as happening on land, but needless to say, what happens in water is part of that picture too. In our feature today from producer Brian Utley, the story of a special partnership on the Mississippi coast that showcases just how much extension matters.
I've heard coastal Mississippi referred to as the secret coast, and I think that's very apropos. I think a lot of folks in Mississippi just haven't had a chance to think about the extreme wonders of the Gulf Coast as it pertains to Mississippi. But fortunately, we have a place like Mississippi Aquarium where people can come and really get a fantastic introduction.
The aquarium really was designed to showcase what we have right here in Mississippi. And being an indoor and outdoor facility, it really gives us the opportunity to showcase a wide variety of species. We like to focus on what's local, so whether it's freshwater fish that are found here in Mississippi that are highlighted in our freshwater river, or some of the saltwater species that you can see behind us. You know, we have a touch tank where the kids can get up close and personal and touch some of the creatures and some of the rays and sharks and anemones and urchins. You know, it's really fun to watch the kids do that, and to be able to showcase what we have behind us is really something special for the people on the coast and throughout the state.
It's been a very fast and tight relationship between Mississippi State University Extension and Mississippi Aquarium from day one. They reached out and wanted to know the types of things that we were doing on the coast, and they were immediately supportive of the types of work we were doing. Specifically, most of my work focuses on sharks and rays. So they reached out relatively early and was eager to support some of our shark tracking studies. And just during multiple conversations we had, it occurred to us collectively that there was a space that we could help fill. And that is just providing a simple, easy to understand, very clean guide to the sharks and rays that are not only here at the aquarium, but also off our coast of Mississippi.
It's really a great resource tool that, one, we pass it out to our staff to be more familiar with localized shark species, but we use it in our field trips, we use it in our outreach programs, we use it in our homeschool days when the homeschoolers come on campus to do field trips. It's kind of a curiosity thing, right? Because you want to see the differences of sharks, you want to see sizes, you want to see how they compare to the size of a human, or whatever it is that sparks the interest of people. It's just another nugget of an educational tool that we're able to share with people.
There are a lot of people that might say, well, I assume there's 1 or 2 or 3 species of sharks off our coast here, but it turns out there's a rich diversity of sharks and rays. We have a shark monitoring program that we've been operating for over 15 years now. So it's safe to say there's between 40 and 50 species of sharks right here in the north central Gulf of Mexico. I mean, and I think it's noteworthy to point out that some of these species we're just now learning about.
It gives a chance for kids and adults alike to really see what those species are, because we have a wide variety of species, and those are the ones that you normally don't see, right? Here's a chance where you can see what it looks like, you can actually touch it, and then we can actually educate you about it. So it is a tool that we find extremely helpful. It's very well done, and actually I think everybody's pretty proud of the outcome.
You know, when I think about the design of the aquarium, their actual logo with those 3 sails and the 3 pillars that they stand for, education, conservation, community, you could almost substitute extension for Mississippi Aquarium, because you think of the tenets of extension, they're very, very similar. Education, conservation, community. So it's really it's a very natural fit, it's a very easy fit. And I think that's why this partnership has flourished so early, and that's why I see us having this relationship, for the life of both of these institutes.
Extension has been a great resource to us because it really does put the collaborative process together with like-minded individuals, like-minded thinking, and we're all about forward thinking, and we want to make our coast better. And the way you do that is to go out and figure out what's happening on the coast and how can we influence either change by behavior or change in environments, make policy changes, but coming together is the only way to do that, by working together with people that really think like you, and Extension offers that to us.
Beautiful, absolutely breathtaking footage.
Looks like they had a great time filming it. I'm jealous.
Me too. Well, next time on Farm Week, an encore follow-up. She's a dancer, pageant winner, Hall of Famer, and maybe a future scientist, but Emma Grace McGrew says she's just a country girl, and it all started with 4-H.
Luck and a good smile only take you so far. Everyone says she was a hard-working 4-H'er with a lot of get up and go.
The results, see for yourself when you meet Emma Grace McGrew again next time on Farm Week.
Remember, if you missed a story, look for past episodes of Farm Week on our website at farmweek.tv.
And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and YouTube. See you next week. In the meantime, have a safe and happy Memorial Day.